Hi, guys. Welcome to Stories and Spoilers, the podcast. My name's Alyssa. I am your cozy host, and I am beyond excited and overjoyed to welcome Evie Mitchell, one of my favorite authors who writes spicy books, small town romances, all the things. And Evie is just brilliant. So please introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Evie Mitchell. I am a small town romance author of short and spicy books.
Hmm.
I think my favorite trope is one bed, so I often include that as
We
in my
love to see it.
books. People might know me from Not My Type, which seems to be, or Thunder Thighs, which seem to be the two that people know me from.
Hmm.
But I also write post-apocalyptic small towns set in Australia. So if anyone's kind of into like post-apocalyptic, really smart women who should be the people who are like surviving the end of the world and like motorcycle guys, I've got you.
We love a good motorcycle romance. And for all the
Yeah.
listeners who are out there, The Fallen Men series by Gianna Darling is amazing. But once you get to the last book, you're going to want something to kind of pull you in.
Mm.
So Evie's books are wonderful. And Thunder Thighs is what pulled me in originally. For folks who don't know, Thunder Thighs is this amazing romance that is, you'll read it pretty quickly. And it follows an owner of like a bar slash restaurant. And she bumps into this like super handsome, like Nordic man. I imagine Thor, like Chris Hemsworth vibes, but like thick Thor. And they bump into each other. It's pretty much love at first sight. And one thing leads to another, and the story just kind of pulls you in. And the small town vibes is very like almost Gilmore Girls-esque in my mind.
Yeah,
But
okay.
man, so good. And you get to hear stories from her friends, and like the main character's love interest has brothers.
Mm.
So the story kind of goes from there, which is
Yeah.
fantastic. And like I loved all the tropes. And you also do dive into polyamorous relationships where it's the
Mm.
two guys and the one girl and the wide choose element, which I am currently reading and loving. All right. You can enjoy
Thank
all the
you.
tropes. So I did want to ask as an icebreaker question, what is one of your favorite romance books that later inspired you to write romance?
Oh,
Mhm.
great question. What have I got on my shelf? That's a good
Your shelf is
question.
amazing, may I add. For
Oh,
listeners who
thank
are
you.
on YouTube or Spotify, you'll be able to see the visuals. Just
Yeah,
look at those beautiful books. Look at the color
I've
coding.
I've got a lot.
Hmm.
What is a book that inspired me? So I think um I really love Lisa Kleypas,
Ooh, okay.
which is like historical romance, completely different. One of her books really got me. Um, I think I went to a talk that Kennedy Ryan did, like early, I want to say like I'm going to say 2015. I don't think it was that
Oh,
early. I
wow.
think it was like a little bit later. But she spoke about the power of stories and the need for
Mm.
stories. And I was like sold, absolutely sold. And so I think like it wasn't so much like her books are incredible, don't get me wrong. But her in person, like just talking about how much she loves her work and what she does and how incredible her presence is.
Mhm.
She was like really she was like if you've got a story to tell, you just tell it. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I need to like go and
Yeah,
write." So
I'm so
yeah,
glad
no,
you
like she
did.
was incredible. Yeah.
I feel like a lot of your books as well, like they balance that cozy, sweet feeling along with like the feeling of the spice and the way you write spice and the way you write
Mm.
longing is so, so good. I don't want to
Thank you.
spoil any of your books by any means, but I do want to like
I'll do
wink,
it.
wink my favorite ones. I'm like, oh man, I have by no means read all of your books, but that's kind of a conscious decision. When I read your books, it's almost like cupcakes. If I read all your books at once, I won't have any more. So I have to like pace myself. I'm like, no, 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 no. This month we're reading like
Yeah.
2 or 3 books. The next thing I know, I'm like, I've read 5 books. But I blew through your Larson siblings books in the
Oh,
Capricorn Cove world.
yeah.
So, so good. Like you get Thunder Thighs, all of your books have like curvy female main characters, which I
Oh,
adore. We definitely get, the spicy scenes are so full of like love and compassion, but also like
mm.
fun. Like, listen, they get lifted up. Like, there's
Yeah.
multiple players in the game. Like, there's mutual longing. People fall
Yeah.
first. Like, if you love a golden retriever man, like just like I need you, I want you. I can't I would do anything for you, kiss the ground you walk on. That's pretty much like all your love interests, and I'm here for it. Like,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah. Like
go.
I want to say that like some of this is definitely inspired by my husband, who is just
Aw.
like one of the best people that you've ever met. But he is not golden retriever at all. He is like grumpy.
Okay.
Yeah, like we're grumpy sunshine. It's and like we're
Oh,
friends to lovers, high school sweethearts, like that kind of vibe. But he is one of like the most loving individuals in the world, and
heart.
he just makes you feel really special. And like I was saying before we kind of started this, that one of the reasons that I write like curvy women is because I myself am plus size. I am um I'm also someone who's really struggled with body image before and has like really had to work hard
Mm,
to overcome like prejudices and like preconceived bias that is in the media, where the media is telling you, no, you don't deserve to have like clothing that you can get off a rack in the shops, all of that kind of stuff.
absolutely.
Where and I've got this amazing person in my life who just has loved me at every size and every shape and every part.
Mm,
And has like yeah, and has been that kind of person in the back of my head who's like, you're gorgeous, you're beautiful, all of this kind of stuff.
wow.
And for a person who doesn't speak a lot, he's not someone who like says a lot. For him to say that kind of stuff is like really meaningful, and has really helped me to kind of see myself as beautiful. Because sometimes you need someone who's outside of you when you're like kind of stuck in your head
I
to be the
can't.
person who cuts through that noise. So I'm glad that I can be that for other people, because I think we all deserve to feel loved and to love ourselves for
What
sure.
a beautiful message. Your books to me definitely give that. And while reading Thunder Thighs, there is an element of the character who has a tattoo of thunder. And
Yeah.
it represents like something she was called a lot, Thunder Thighs. And
Yeah.
she reclaims that. And like
Mhm.
I'm a very short, curvy woman. I'm 5'5", and like I haven't
Oh,
weighed
wow.
myself in like 2 years. But I
Good.
used to sit there and be like, you know what? Like if I, you know what I mean? And like obviously like I, a trigger warning for that. But like my relationship with food like goes up and down, and like
Mm.
there are times that I'm like, oh my gosh, like if I see a video about like the clean girl aesthetic and it's like all these people who look a certain way and they're doing all these things that I already do, but it's one of those things where I was like, oh, I drink lots of water, and I take ginger shots,
Yeah.
and I love my partner, and I go for walks. My weight tends to either fluctuate extremely or it stays the same, and no matter what you do,
Yeah.
you hit a certain age and your body just kind of changes and it evolves, and you don't look like your 17-year-old self, you don't look like your 21-year-old self.
Yeah.
And reading books where there's women who or just people who look like you and who are loved and who are
Mm.
seen and who aren't, their goal isn't to change. They don't have this like, you ever see like the 90s movies, the 80s movies where they like have a makeover
Oh,
and
yeah.
somehow like
Hate
the
that.
glasses come off and her dress is on and they're like, you look so much smaller, you look so much prettier now. And I'm like, she
Yeah.
literally just took off her glasses, straightened her hair, and put on a pair of capris. Like
Yeah.
nothing has changed. And like what happens when that outfit comes off? Like she's still the same person on the inside.
Yeah.
We're not all like ugly duckling to like princessa. Like the princessa can be curvy and have a booty and like, she can have stretch marks and she can have, varicose veins and she can have gray hair.
Yeah.
Like, and same thing with like a love interest. I love hearing about like curvy love interests who are male,
Yeah.
female, non-binary. Like every inch of you deserves to be loved. And all
100%.
of your books illustrate that,
Oh, thank you so
which
much.
is so
Yeah, I
beautiful.
like I'm really passionate about being loved for who you are. And I think so often in the media and books and movies, particularly like growing up in the 80s and 90s, we were really, and like early 2000s like where it was like the heroin chic type thing, we were
Mm,
really told that in order to be loved and to be worthy, we had to like completely, change the way that we look,
yeah,
in order to be seen by that person who loves us,
yeah.
or who we want to love us. And for me, that's just not the case. Like the people who I would never ask to change. And like, I love them because of who they are and what they do. And I just think it's a beautiful thing to be loved for who you are. And to have someone who is like, drop down, like, would, burn the whole town for you because they
Yes.
love you so much
Yes.
is just, that's such a privilege. And I love that so much. And yeah, it's like similarly, I think when like I get a lot of emails from people who have read the books and who say things like, this is the first time where I have read someone who is my size or
Mm.
has my disability, or in Love Flesh, I don't know if you've read that one, but he talks about how her body isn't the body that he knew in high school. Her body is Venus, and how it has risen from the ocean, and he now sees her as this beautiful work of art where there's stretch marks that have marked the life of her on her skin. And the amount of people who have like sent me that particular quote is like, it's true, right? Like, as we grow and shape and become older, our life is marked on our skin and it becomes part of who we are. And I wouldn't trade that, because I think it's a privilege to grow old. It's a privilege to change and live in the body that we're in. And a lot of people don't get that privilege. And I think having a chronic illness, I'm more aware of that, and I'm more aware of the fact that the body that I'm in is so essential to the strength that I am able to carry through life and the resilience that I'm able to carry through life and the stories that we're able to tell because we're still here.
Wow.
That was very deep. I'm sorry.
No, that was a beautiful answer. And like, I hope that all the listeners who are listening, like, your body, your mental space, what you're going through, you deserve love throughout that entire experience. Like, I
Yeah.
think, I think as well, like, books are so healing because, like, in movies, you can sum up an entire life in like an hour. And the love
Mm,
interest, like, oh, it was you the whole time. And I'm just sitting here and I'm
mm.
like, you only realize that like it was this person was worthy of love at the very end. Like,
Yeah.
they had to fight for it, like tooth and nail, you know? Keanu Reeves said something, and I bring it up all the time because it does to me sum up like the love element, where Drew Barrymore said, like, I'm not a fighter. And Keanu Reeves was like, you have to be a fighter for love. Like, you have to fight for love. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, lovers fight for love. It be it putting
Yes.
yourself out there, being vulnerable, even just sharing a book and being like, you know what? Like, I adore this book. I adore this
Mm,
author, and I would love for you to read this so we could talk about it. You know, even
100%.
exploring intimacy. You did that in Double Breasted, your book about it's a sapphic, really cozy Halloween romance, and there's like a chicken farm, and the word cock is thrown around a lot because it's like it's a chicken farm, and this person goes through a major life change, and I do want to give a heads up that one of the main characters had cancer, and they end up making up, changing their life and moving towards a small town where their siblings are, and they end up buying a chicken farm, thinking this will be the life. And there's a fire, and then there's a firefighter that comes that's super hot and has to investigate where this fire came from. Super short romance, very low stakes, but the way that, like, intimacy and almost vulnerability and the fear of being vulnerable, the fear of being turned down, um all of that like is tied into this story, and acceptance and love. This was one of the first romances I've ever read where they didn't just jump straight into bed together because it was the right time and they were in the right like mental space of their body.
Mm,
No, like the main character needed multiple, let's kiss, let's stop, let's touch here, we
mm,
have to stop. And then eventually when they did, like, explore spicy moments, it felt very realistic to me because it was earned and they revealed parts of themselves when they were ready, rather than, because like we just got caught up in the moment, which does happen and I love it. But like sometimes in real life, like you do kind of need to stop and circle back when the
yeah.
moment's right, you know? I loved how you did that in Double Breasted. It was
Thank
still
you.
fun and beautiful, but like no, we needed to circle back. You needed to be patient,
Yeah.
you know?
I think there's a lot of fun in Wham Bam, thank you, ma'am. Don't get me wrong. Like, I
Oh,
I
there
love a good
is.
like
There
spy.
is.
But I think particularly where like my books are often quite short.
Mm.
And I like to call them cookies. So you said cupcakes. I call them cookies. I
They are
like
like
num num
cookies.
num. Um, but I think one of the things that for me is, even though I write short, there needs to be that element of this is a genuine relationship.
Mm.
And there has to be the intimacy because at the end, I want you to know that this is like a legitimate relationship, that they're going to last because they have built something that is worthwhile and they've been vulnerable with each other because that's something that I think a lot of people relate to, that there's a fear that comes with a relationship. You're jumping
Absolutely.
off the cliff and having to trust that other person. And if you don't have that intimacy, if you're not kind of building that fear, because it is low stakes, these are really fun books, but if there's still got to be an element of the thing that I want most in the world is to be with this person. But in order to do that, I have to make myself vulnerable and I have to trust that they're going to catch me when I make myself vulnerable and that they're going to reciprocate that. And yeah, I think that's definitely something that I try and weave into every book. I don't know if I'm successful or not, but
You
it's something that I
are.
definitely try and weave into every book. Thank you.
Spoiler alert, she
I try.
is. You are very successful. And I did want to specify, like, with every single one of your books, I do
Mm,
kind of like, from the ones I've read, I always grab like a quote that hit me really hard.
mm,
And that's an element of Stories and Spoilers, the podcast, where I like to share quotes from books that really impacted me. And like when I think of like Thunder Thighs, I just think about like there's a scene when they're in her kitchen and like, she's cooking and like it's really cute and warm and cozy, and there's dirty talk, and the way that they communicate to each other and the way that they like hold each other and care for each other, even just the way she describes her business and like the love she has for her business and making that with her friend. You show love, not just romantically, but like the intimacy between friends, like the
yeah.
importance of like the siblings and that big family. Like in I believe it's the X list. I'm just sitting here and I'm like, oh my God, like it's finally reversed where the male love interest loves books and he's a reason he
Oh
loves
yeah.
books. And he ends up recommending in that book, he ends up recommending his love interest. He makes a list of books he wants her to read, and they're a lot, they become progressively pretty spicy.
Yeah.
Also like get to see from her point of view, like she's not a huge fan of books and why she's not, and what she's invested a lot of her time in. And that main character has a disability. She's a prosthetic leg. And she has different prosthetic legs, and she explains like why she has different prosthetic legs and like their purposes.
Mm.
And there's a scene in that book that like I guess the pelican there's a bird and it
There's a
flies into
pelican
her
scene.
house. Yes. And there's like a pelican, it flies into her house and he's her next door neighbor. And in that book, like she flies into the house, he hears like clattering in her house. He is super scared and he's more grumpy. He runs into the house and he is thinking like something God forbid happened to her, and he finds that she fell and the bird was like in her area, and he ends up having to sing to the bird to like soothe it and get it out of the house. And that was one of those moments where I was like, this reminds me a lot of that Sydney Sweeney rom-com, where I'm not sure, there's a rom-com where it has Sydney Sweeney in it and it has the guy from Twister, and he,
Oh, yes, yes.
yes,
Okay.
same vibes. Your
Yeah.
books are exactly like that, but better, if that's even possible. Like it's not all enemies to lovers, but for them, it definitely did give a little bit of like loathing, because she's like,
Mm.
fuck your books. And he's like,
Yeah.
what did you say? He's literally a bookshop owner. He's like, excuse me? And there's a bet and everything, and it's so, so good. And that was one of my favorite books because like it took her realizing that like he doesn't view her differently for her prosthetic leg. It's not that. He has other reasons why he's not pursuing this romance at this time. He has communication issues. Like there's other things going on.
Mm.
And it felt so earned and it felt so good when they did meet that romantic, element. And even seeing the way his family spoke to him, she didn't like, I guess they didn't realize how they spoke to him. And that
Mm.
was like an element in a book I've never seen before, where like from the male love interest point of view, communication is an issue and he's aware of that.
Mm.
He thought by showing her these books, it was illustrating how he felt, which how was
Yeah.
she supposed to get that? But it's like it's just so, so good. Even the pelican
Rune,
element, I'm like,
look,
all right.
Rune is one of my favorite characters I've ever written because he is so clueless.
And this is
He's
the
just
X list, y'all.
he
That's the book we're discussing is the X list.
yeah, the X list. He just like he loves romance. He like, he's a bookstore owner. He reads everything, but he has no idea how to interact with people and just is just completely clueless. And I love it so much because a lot of people are like, oh, I hate the miscommunication trope and all this kind of thing. And I'm like, it is so relevant.
It's
Like
true
the amount
though.
of people who get ghosted, the amount of times where I feel like text something and then someone's interpreted it completely differently, or I've
Hmm.
asked, like, I've said something to, a friend or, something, and they've just completely misinterpreted what I've said.
Which happens.
Um, yeah, all the time, right? Because we're all human. So writing that book, there was a lot of me just laughing the whole time. Like when he has to like serenade this pelican out of her house was just so much fun. So yeah, no, it's that one was a lot of fun to write. And I think I love a miscommunication trope. Just because there's so many amazing ways that you can have a miscommunication trope that ends up really funny.
I agree.
Um, yeah.
I
So
agree.
yeah, no, it's good.
Even like he falls first. I think there's something to be said
Yeah.
for like seeing someone pine for someone and why
Mm,
they're so attracted to them. It's not just the physical. Like, why are
no.
you falling in love with this person? Tell me
Yeah.
why. Tell me why. I want to understand why are you falling in love with this person? Um,
Yeah.
and I just like even just seeing like in Clean Sweep. In that book we have which kind of follows up with Thunder Thighs. But in
Mm.
Clean Sweep, we see the brother of one of the main characters in Thunder Thighs come to town and get twins. Something happens and he ends up getting twins, and he's a single
Mm.
dad. And you see something really real happen where he becomes very overwhelmed and his house gets super cluttered because he's caring for two babies and he has a business, and
Mm.
his love interest is very much like the cleaning queen,
Yeah.
and she ends up coming in, and his family like kind of signs him in for this show where they're going to clean his house, and this woman comes coming in to clean the house and show him ways to keep his house clean, which is so creative. And she ends up falling in love with him and really caring for the kids. And the moment she walks into that house and she's like, this house is so beautiful. Like I literally imagined it as like a cabin near the water, like very cozy, like very safe haven. Have you ever seen that Nicholas Sparks
Yeah.
movie? Very,
Yeah.
very similar. Just the way she walks in, and she's like, man, I would love a house like this. I would love a man like this. And this man's looking at her. He's like, dear God, where did you come from? Also, I'm a single dad now. I can't focus on how beautiful you are, but also you are so beautiful. In his mind, she's pining for him as well.
Yeah.
What a creative story to have someone literally come in and be like, I'm not trying to fix you, but I do
Mm.
want to help you with something I see that you're struggling with.
Mm.
And having a male love interest who's open to that, who's like, you know what,
Yeah.
I am struggling. You know what I mean? I can't do it
Yeah.
all. Um,
Yeah. I think a
wow.
lot of my male love interests, or a theme that I always try and do, is they fix themselves.
Hmm.
And yeah, they might ask for help, like in Clean Sweep, Eric asks Laura, like he gets dubbed in for this reality TV show, um, to like Laura's the queen of clean. And so she comes in and she's helping him, but he's putting in the effort to make the change. And that's what she really respects about him. And I think I see that in a lot of the other books where, Rune doesn't just suddenly start communicating. He actually puts the effort in to work out how to communicate to Gabby really well. And I think it's seeing men do that is really powerful because often we don't get that in real life.
Mm.
And I don't want to like kind of talk down on men because I think men are amazing,
By no means.
but I think we haven't really taught men that as boys. We really accepted boys will be boys, and we've really indoctrinated that into our society. And so, we were talking beforehand that, men can be gross, particularly, when they haven't put that effort in to learn different behaviors.
Absolutely.
And I'm really lucky that a lot of the men in my life are incredible beings who have really put in the effort to understand bias and, look for different things. but they've put in that work and they are doing that work themselves. Like I haven't led them to that. It hasn't been someone else who's like really pushed them to it. They've done that themselves. And that is a theme that I put into my books because I really respect people who do that. And it's not just the men, like the women also do that in some of the books that I write, but a lot of the time it's the men who are putting in that effort.
I I also think that like in your books it's very beautiful to see people who are saying like I experienced this. Like in
Yeah.
Double Breasted, there is a moment of someone communicating really extreme news. Like this is life-changing news. And their
Mm.
partner at the time in the past, not the love interest, but the partner in the past does, sleeps with them, makes them feel comfortable, and then leaves.
Yeah.
They can't handle this
No.
news. And speaking as someone who like I'm very open on the podcast about like I'm terrified of like being left behind or being vulnerable and then someone
Mm.
leaves or they run away. And I feel like a lot of listeners and a lot of readers out there, we read to escape real life, or we
Mm.
read to find a happy ending in love stories that maybe you didn't have a happy ending in the past. Maybe you had a really bad heartbreak and you just want to read about a billionaire romance where this person with millions of dollars wants to love you and care for you, you plain Jane. Like everyone wants somebody, so sometimes you want to read that. Um,
Universal fantasy,
and
mate.
and
I'm
that's
here for
okay.
it.
But your books, I feel like in a lot of ways, like Clean Sweep, where we get that single dad with the twins, and you really see him putting in the work emotionally and just also communicating like I have needs as well, and like my
Mm.
relatives aren't always there to help me, and I have feelings, and I want to explore those feelings with you. Wow, like how
Mm.
vulnerable. You have Thunder Thighs, where you have a woman describing, her body and loving her body, but also no expressing like she had to put in work to love herself. And at this
Mm.
point, she's ready to experience pleasure. She's ready to experience romance and kind of the explore like she almost manifested him. She wanted someone
Yeah.
just like her love interest. And the man walked through the door.
Yeah.
And that happens for some folks. And like I adored how all of your books do have this whimsy and this magic, but they also aren't afraid to like reference some vulnerable things that readers may experience. And it doesn't pull you out. Like, listeners, please hear me. Like, these books are not going to pull you out by any means. They'll almost like reassure you, like, things get
Mm.
better. Like, these romances, these happy endings, like, you can have happy endings. Like, be brave, go on that date, go to that silent book club. Who knows who you'll meet?
Yeah.
It's like your books are definitely like a warm cappuccino, like very
Oh,
reassuring, very fluffy, and a little hot, a little
I
spicy,
love
a little
it.
spicy. And you want more, you definitely want more. I also
I
wanted to
love it.
know,
Thank you.
yeah, do you have any movies that you watch? I love referencing movies
Mm.
and books and that relationship. Are there any
Oh,
movies you've watched and you're like, you know what? That romance right there. If you could pair a movie with one of your books, if you love this movie, read this book. Which movie would you
oh,
choose? And which book would you choose?
oh,
I know. I know.
really hard. Okay, so this is gonna be like a really weird
Okay.
reference. Do you know Long Shot with
I
Seth
have
Rogen
I
and
I have heard
Charlize
of it.
Theron? Okay, so she's like the vice president, and he is just this absolute hot mess, and he ends up being her speechwriter, and they kind of knew each other from childhood, and he's always crushed on her, and she's like Secretary of State, but she's like wanting to become the president and all this kind of stuff.
Hmm.
I love the fact that the power dynamic between them is that she's the one who's in control and she's the badass and she is just incredible. And he brings out this really lovely, um, like he brings out the fun in her life and gives her back different things. And then she chooses him despite like him messing up and all this other kind of stuff. I also love the dynamic between them
Ooh.
because she's constantly poised. Like she is like Grace, she has to be serious, she has to be professional. But when they're together, she is like the biggest klutz. She is,
Your
just
guard comes
it's
down.
yeah, exactly. The wall comes down. She can be vulnerable. She can admit that things are hard. She doesn't have to be strong. He can just support her. And like, there's this scene right at the end where they're like interviewing them. Spoiler alert, after she becomes the president. And He goes, I thought that I had to change the world, but all I needed to do to change the world was support this beautiful woman. And I was just like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I want from people. Like, I want someone who is supporting the other person in their life, who is supporting that partner. So if I was to choose a movie, I think it's that one. And I think that would probably be Darn It All, which is there. Um, and I think Darn It All, he is just like a hot mess, and she is like, so I re describe him as golden retriever energy, and Mai is anxious pigeon. So she is like anxiety. Well, she's got an anxiety disorder, which is what I have.
Me too.
And she's just, but she is so talented, and she's gonna make something of herself and all the rest of it. But he's just there to support her. He will do whatever needs to happen in order to support her to realize her dreams. And I love that for them. Yeah.
I love that you also put representation for anxiety. I know that you experience that.
Mm,
I also experience that. Being with
yeah.
someone who's able to kind of, you have to ground yourself, but being with someone who's like, hey, I understand you're stressed out. How can I be here for you right now? Like, what can we do in
Mm,
this moment? And how can I support you? Be it showing up, be it, maybe helping them with their business. How can I package these things? How do we need to run to UPS? Things like
mm,
that. Showing up, is such a reassuring thing. Even saying, you know what, I see how hard you're working right now. I'll make dinner. Like you don't have
yeah.
time. Like let me do that. And in any relationship, you have sapphic rep. I know you also have disability rep, which is so beautiful. Another author who does
Yeah.
that is Hannah Bonham Young. Like both of you
Yeah.
have a beautiful way of writing about not just disabilities that you can see, but also disabilities you can't see, and
Mm,
mental health and living with that, and loving someone who's living with that,
mm,
and how to manage that. And I just feel
yeah.
like, man, what a good comparison. So Long Shot and then your book, which is amazing. And I'll be
Thank
linking
you.
all the books referenced below, as well as your Goodreads and your
Thank
Instagram.
you. Thank
But
you.
I just feel like, I think overall, if you had to pick a couple from one of your books you would like to meet in real life or write an
Oh,
extra chapter about, which couple would you choose and why?
okay. So every year I do Yamis, so I write extra chapters about all of the people in my books.
Ooh, I didn't know
So
that.
if people signed up to my newsletter, then you get extra bonus scenes every year. Um, which couple would I meet? Um, Okay, it's actually a couple that I haven't finished writing.
Ooh,
Is that okay to reference?
yes,
Okay.
please. Okay, we're
So,
getting extra extras, team.
yeah.
All right.
So, so this couple that I'm meeting at the moment, so this is a little bit left field, but he actually has erectile dysfunction after he had testicular cancer, and and they have kind of been together for a while, and they are navigating this new part of their life and what that looks like, and he and her together are just, they love each other so much, and
Hmm.
they just want the best for each other, but they don't know how to communicate to each other that they want that for each other. And they're so in their heads, and I just want to meet them to be like, can you guys just like talk? Just
You're the
like this.
author. You could make them talk. You. No, I can't. I must allow it
I
to play
can't.
out.
They're separate people,
You could change
honestly.
it. You. No, no.
Yeah. So, and it's just, but it's such a beautiful love story because the love story's already happened. This is meant to be the happily ever after, right? But the happily ever after is part of your love story, and it's
Hmm.
doesn't mean that you don't have trials and tribulations after the marriage and after the honeymoon. And their love story is so ingrained into who they are, and I love them so much. And I just want them, like, I want the best for them, but I'm like, guys, just talk. Just like it's gonna be fine.
It's
Anyway,
communication.
that's who I would love to meet in real life.
Oof, I felt that. I guess a film that popped into my mind when I think of one of your books is The Holiday with Cameron
Yes.
Diaz. And I don't know why, but almost the dynamic between Jack Black and oh my God, what's her name? Oh, her name
Kate
is like,
Winslet.
yes,
Yeah.
the dynamic between Jack Black and Kate Winslet reminds me a lot of The X-List, because
Yeah.
in The Holiday there is a moment where Kate Winslet is, speaking to an older man, her neighbor, and he's recommending her all these movies she has to watch because he was in
Mm.
Hollywood, and their friendship grows. And Jack Black is this like he writes music and he writes music for movies.
Yeah.
And he ends up meeting her in a chance encounter and they become friends. And he recommends her, I think, movies as well. And
Yeah.
then one thing leads to another, and then they end up falling in love. And it's very sweet
Yeah.
and soft. One of my favorite Christmas movies of all time. Cameron Diaz is also
Same.
it, so is Jude Law. But
Yeah.
I remember one of your books gave me the same feelings as Jack Black and Kate Winslet, and it was the
Okay.
X-List. It was just because
Yeah.
of like that warm, fun feeling, that's what the female main character made me think of. And then that almost guarded, kind of shy, a
Mm,
little scared for myself out there, that Kate Winslet character is what the male
mm,
love interest gave me. And it was just like the energy and the feelings and that slow budding love and that a little bit of the
yeah.
banter and the back and forth. Exactly. Like another movie reference, y'all. You have to see The Long Shot and you have to see The Holiday because
I love it.
what amazing movies. And your books are like just like that. Like they give similar
Thank you.
vibes. I'm like, oh, what magic, what magic.
Thank
And one of
you.
my last questions for you is, what do you think is the most important thing to include in a romance book?
Happily
Yeah.
ever after.
Oh, happily ever after. That was a very quick question. Yeah, what's the most important thing to add? Well, happily ever after, of course.
Yeah.
And what is
Okay.
what is a good
But if
happily
I
ever
was to,
after? Like, what is it?
yeah, if it's not a happily ever after, then it's not a romance.
Mm,
But if
tragedy.
I was if I was to like go a little bit deeper,
Mm,
I'd probably say the heart reveal.
mm,
And that sounds a little bit different, but what I mean by that is where the person reveals the heart of themselves to the other person. And I think and that other person sees it and just accepts it and takes that heart from them and is like, I'm going to take care of that for you. And if you don't have that, then I just feel like that relationship is incomplete because they haven't seen all of you. So yeah, I think that heart reveal and a happily ever after.
wow, I love that. The heart reveal. That could
Yeah.
easily be the next title of one of your books, and I'd be like,
Yeah.
I knew it first, team. Report,
There we go.
report. This is the
Maybe
time.
I haven't got a name for this current work in progress, so maybe
Oh,
that's the yeah.
if
I
that
like
ends up
that
being
actually.
it,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, yeah. We could, listeners, we can say we were the ones who heard it first.
Yeah.
There is this theory, and I did share it in another episode with another author, Sangu Medina, and she writes amazing romances as well. And I shared this theory I have, and I want to share it with you. And the listeners may have
Okay.
heard of it, but if you haven't, you're hearing it now. I have this theory about romance, and I've also found it in books, and your books do fall into this category. There are three
Ooh.
tiers of romance. So there is the wedding cake, there's the takeout, and there's the groceries.
Okay.
So I do want to share this theory with you, and I want you to kind of pair a book with each one. So the
Okay, go
wedding
ahead.
cake is, well, I guess I'll save the wedding cake for last. So takeout is a romance where it's short term, it kind of fills what you need for now, and it hits the spot. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
imagine like a one-shot romance. Like, yeah,
Okay.
but then it becomes more, becomes more. The next one, so we've got takeout, you've got a wedding cake, which is it's good for one night, like a one night stand. We had a good time, sweet. You're not gonna take the wedding cake home, but you're gonna enjoy it for the right now. Like it's fun, it's great, it's
Okay.
bubbly, it's all right for now.
Yeah.
And then you have groceries. This is my
Okay.
theory. Groceries is real love because
Yeah.
groceries you have to get every week or every month. You have to get things you need and things you want. You have to see the person for who they really are, their darkest
Mm,
moments, getting groceries in the middle of the night, going to CVS in the middle of the night, going to the shop to get pads or cold medicine. You are
mm,
going to go to the grocery store for the rest of your life, and you get to choose who you go to the grocery store with and what you get. And it's almost like when you go down the aisle and you're getting all the things you need, and then you grab
mm.
their favorite ice cream without them having to ask. And it's
Oh,
small,
yeah.
but it makes their freaking night. Groceries is true love. Even when you're old
Yeah.
and you're like going down the grocery store, you can look at a 20-something-year-old couple and remember that you were that couple at one point. Real
Yes.
love is groceries.
I love it.
So
I
that's
love it.
my theory. I
It's
have
the
three
everyday.
theories.
I love it.
Yes.
I
So
think
which three books
I
would you put in those categories?
oh, okay. Of mine? Okay.
Yeah. And they're all valid, may I add. All those
No,
forms
no,
are
no. But
valid at some point in your life.
100%. Okay, so I would put so takeaway, I would say
Mhm.
is probably Thunder Thighs.
Okay.
Um, but you can
Because
correct
it's
me if you
Insta
think
Love. That
different.
was Insta Love.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
was
yeah.
pretty
That was
quick. It was pretty quick.
boom.
But it was good.
Um, One night, okay, so one night I would so the wedding cake I would say is Runner, which I
Okay.
don't think you've read, but
What's it
he
about?
is like, so this is the post-apocalyptic MC. He sees her and is like, "You're in the back of my bike now," and like literally throws her over his shoulder when they get to
Ooh,
the compound and takes her off to bed. Um, Look, it turns into more, but it's
I'm
like
here for it
very like
though. Hell
he just wants
yeah.
the wham bam, thank you, ma'am. Yeah.
Ooh, ooh,
Yeah, it's
okay.
really good. I think the one that I would say is groceries. And I think the thing that really stood out to me in the way that you described it, Alyssa, was the groceries is the mundane, right?
Hmm.
It's the acceptance that you're doing whatever you want to do. And I think for me, Love Flushed was that book
Mm.
where so Annie has Crohn's disease, Link, they were like childhood sweethearts. They broke up for various reasons. He's come back into her life. It's kind of forced proximity. She runs a toilet paper company, um, a subscription toilet paper company. It's very funny. Um, and she has a moment where she's in a flare up and she is down for the count. And he goes out and he puts in the research and he finds out what she needs during a flare up and he goes out and he comes back with a care package and gives that to her. And he's like, okay, it's got eggs, it's got, a heat pack in it, it's got XYZ. And she doesn't have to do anything. And she just knows that she's going to be taken care of. And he
Wow.
just makes that part of everyday life. And I think for me, that mundanity is beautiful. There is a gorgeousness in knowing that you're coming home and you or your partner is making dinner or whatever it is. There's a beauty in that, and I love that. I think that's a wonderful. I love your description. I'm going to use
Thank
that from now on.
you. Right? I think those are three beautiful categories. I think I learned that
Mm,
in like high school. I was like, you know what? Like, what is the thing that you do every week, every month?
yeah,
And it's something you've done for as long as even you're a baby, you're in the grocery store. You're in college, you're in the grocery store. You're
yeah,
a market. I would always see those couples who would shop together every week or like, who were fussing over things. And I'm like, you know what? This is
mm,
incredibly ma mundane, but
yeah,
I think one of my first dates, I bought something for my girlfriend at the grocery store.
yeah,
And now 4 years later, I'm like, we go to the grocery store together. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like I remember stressing out about this one thing at the grocery. It was a cupcake. And ooh, story time. There was a cupcake. And one of your books has a cupcake on the cover. Someone's dressed as a cupcake.
yeah.
But there was a cupcake. It was met my partner during COVID,
Mm.
and we were socially distancing at the time, and we'd planned a first date. We were masked up, and we were gonna meet at the beach. And I live in Florida. We were gonna meet at the beach at sunrise. This day was
Oh,
incredibly cold, like super cold, like very windy, cold for us, okay? I
yeah.
had my special scarf on. It was like a magenta scarf. I had a big puffy jacket, and my partner hates mornings, but they got up early for me. And it was our first date, and their birthday was a
Oh,
few days later. We had not like met yet. We hadn't, gone on
yeah,
an
yeah, yeah.
official date. And I didn't have a car, so I ran to I literally jogged to my nearest Publix after work one day, the day before the date, and I bought a cupcake, and I was searching for the perfect cupcake. I got a confetti cupcake with like vanilla icing. And I remember I covered her cupcake with 21 candles. This is not a very large cupcake. And I covered it with 21 candles and I lit them all. We went to the beach. I lit them all in her car. We were like, oh, let's go inside. We're like, okay, you tested, you tested. We're both negative. Okay, okay. We got in the car. We take our masks off. I started to close her eyes. And she's like, oh, I feel heat. The heater in the car is really working. It was the heat from all the candles I just lit. And I was like, open your eyes. And they have a photograph of me on that first date 4 years ago, holding this cupcake covered in fire. And I was like, happy birthday. Yeah, yeah. I'm not gonna fall in love with you. It's not gonna happen. A month later, I think I'm in love with you. Oh no. Read all my books. But one thing led to another, and I wrote them. I didn't have money for a gift, so I ended up writing her like 6 poems, and I put them in like
Oh,
envelopes. And I got the cupcake, and I was like, oh, like my next paycheck is until next week. I'm so sorry. And my partner was like, stay here. They went to their trunk. I'm thinking murder. They went to their trunk and they had gotten me my favorite like big candle. They got me a jacket they sprayed with all their cologne so I could like smell it when we were apart. And we would have
Oh,
dates on Zoom. We met on Zoom. So
oh my gosh.
yeah, so that I was able to snuggle with their jacket. We would like Uber each other food and we fell in love through distance first. And then that's when
Amazing.
we had our first date. We were already pretty deep into it. And it was just one of those
Yeah.
things where like I read books now and I'm like, if a book can make me feel the same way that, going on a date and being nervous and like, I'm not gonna fall in love with you. I'm not gonna fall in love with you. And then you do.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
you're gonna be sweet to me. I'm not gonna fall for the first nice thing you do to me. And they do something sweet and you're like, God damn it.
Damn
The
it. How
plan is
dare
off.
you?
Exactly. Or even like people say like Insta love isn't real. I'm like, I don't think that's true. I think love can grow, but I think there's definitely instant interest. I think you could definitely know what you want right away.
I am
Yeah.
actually a believer in Insta love. And
Ooh,
I
tell me
think the reason,
more.
yeah, I believe in soulmates. Like
Me too.
I think that I think there's a buffet out there, don't get me wrong.
Hmm.
But I think sometimes you meet someone and it doesn't have to be romantic love either. It can be friendship love. And you meet someone and you just connect with them and you know instantly that they are your person. And that doesn't have to be, I've got some really good friends who that person for them is their friend. Like they have a partner, but that person is their best friend. And I think there is insta love that is absolutely out there. And I think I've seen it in the relationships I have where I'm just like, you're my person.
Friendship,
Um,
yeah. You
yeah,
can find a soulmate
100%.
and a friend.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, if you can get that as a romantic package, wonderful. But
What?
not for everyone, and it doesn't have to be. And I think, yeah, I love your story. That was so beautiful. Can I
Thank you.
just say, don't underestimate the power of writing something. So my husband
Mhm.
and I, we were high school sweethearts. We did lots and lots of notes back and forth in high school. And the way that he proposed, this is my story time. The way that he proposed was he took me up on this bushwalk and he disappeared and was like, I'll meet you at the top of the trail. And I was like,
What?
okay. So I wander up and he's taken
Okay.
all of these, yeah, and he took all of these notes that he and I had written to each other over the years and he had put them in envelopes and stapled them along the trail. And so here I
Oh.
was like taking one and it was from each year of our relationship all the way down to this beautiful lookout where he wrote a new letter that was like the proposal. And then I turned around and it was like him ready to
Oh my
propose and stuff. It was so beautiful. But I just remember thinking like we've still got all of those letters and we've still got and like he still writes me like beautiful letters and that kind of thing.
gosh.
Particularly if I'm having a bad day, I'll find like a little note in my like lunchbox or something. Don't underestimate the power of the written letter. Like, honest to goodness, it's
Yeah.
there's something so beautiful and romantic about it. Yeah.
Homemade notes, I made a challenge with my partner because we're saving for our first apartment, is to, can we make a free date? Can we do a date?
Yeah.
And then like food, we'll figure out. Maybe we do a picnic or we set like a budget for the date, maybe $50, $20. It's more about just spending time. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Just like feeling seen, like that
yeah.
heart moment you described, like just feeling seen and then the person catching you and accepting you like for who you
Yeah.
are and where you are right now.
Yeah.
What weight you are, what mental space you're in, what financial space you're in,
Yeah.
family conflict, all that. Like just accepting you for you right now.
Hmm.
Romance is just that, like it's acceptance. The opposite of love is like indifference.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
just you don't care at all. Like but love is acceptance. Love is compassion. It's just sitting in like it's the wait. Like, you know what? I'm gonna wait in this moment right now until you're ready, and we're gonna talk about it. And your
Yeah.
books, they delivered. Yeah, your books give it all.
Thank
And
you.
yes, they serve. Let her cook. Like let her cook. Your books are amazing, and they give
Thank
that.
you.
Like I'm so excited because I just have so much joy for your books, and
Thank you.
I will list all the books we described, and like I will also just share your Goodreads so people can find all your books. But if you
Yeah.
had to recommend one book for readers to start with,
Mm.
what book would you recommend? I know there's so many. You could recommend them by trope as well. Be like, you know what? If you love this, then I recommend you reading this.
Yeah, I should really put that on my website. Thank you for the idea.
You're welcome.
Um, I think most people start off with Not My Type,
Okay.
or Thunder Thighs. So they both are first in series. You can kind of come in. Not My Type, I think, because for a lot of people, they haven't read someone who is a wheelchair user as the lead main character, and love interest. And I also think that like, one of the things that I really love about that book is the person with the insecurities is the guy.
Mm.
So maybe that one. Or I would say probably Thunder Thighs, because that one is, out of all the books I have, that's the most popular one for everyone. And that is all about love and self-acceptance. And
Mm.
if you love so you said Thor and like Dad Bod Thor. So when
Yeah.
I was writing Thunder Thighs, I really thought Stranger Things Hopper.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
yes. Well,
Yeah.
yes. I could see
So
that as
like, but
well.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But like, so like that kind of like husky, like, kind
Absolutely.
of
Teddy bear. He's a
vibe.
teddy bear.
Yeah. The bear. Yeah.
Hmm.
So that one, yeah, I think those two most people will get something out of. But if you're unsure, I'll definitely put some tropes up on my website so you can go and have a look and see which one kind
Yes.
of appeals to you.
I'll also
But
make a
I'll
note to
actually
share that
do
too.
I'll give a code for you that you can put up,
Oh, cute.
and then your readers can go and choose a free book from my website.
Oh,
So,
that would be amazing. Okay,
no
cool. Yes.
worries.
I will add the code in the show notes and I'll
Mm,
also add it in my Instagram bio so that you
perfect.
people can use it. I honestly just feel like also Christmas time, you have books for the holidays.
Oh yeah.
So, even for folks who may not celebrate Christmas necessarily, you just want to read like wintry romances. I know you also have wintry romances. So,
Yeah.
give a, recommend it. You have books for Halloween,
Yeah.
winter,
I've got
summer, like all
I've
of
got a
it.
lot.
I love it. I love it. I'm sitting here and I'm like, I wish I had an accent. Damn, I'm here in Gator country. I'm here deep in the horrible tan South. I'm not talking about natural tans. I'm talking about spray tans. Like,
Oh right.
no, no. People are like, you live near a beach. I'm like, yeah, you know where beaches are? They're like, yeah, beach is so beautiful. I'm like, have you ever heard of sand lice? Have you heard of
Yeah.
sand lice? And they're like, no, I've never heard of sand lice. I'm like, you're gonna hear about
Yeah.
sand lice. Even Australia, like you live in the land of Hugh Jackman and Margot Robbie and Nicole
Yeah.
Kidman. You guys are tough and gorgeous and creative and amazing,
Thank you so
So
much. No,
yes.
I love Australia. Australia is, yeah, it's beautiful. I'm actually coming to you from Ngunnawal country, which is the land of the local people that I am on. So that's in Canberra, Australia. So yeah, the local people here are just incredible, and I have a acknowledgement of country in the front of all of my books because that's really important to me, to acknowledge the fact that I am on stolen land. But I think one of the things that I really love about this particular area is I live in the capital city of Australia, but it is a very big small town,
Mm.
and it's just completely surrounded by bush. So um, I can go out, I can literally walk 10 minutes up the road, and there are kangaroos and echidnas and wombats and all sorts
Whoa.
of beautiful wildlife. So it's one of my favorite places I've ever lived in Australia. So
Oh
yeah,
my
if
gosh.
anyone wants to come visit, hit me up. I have a spare bed. Always happy.
Well, you're so welcoming and wonderful. I am curious, are there any books that you see yourself writing that are set in Australia? Could you ever see yourself writing a book with maybe
Yeah.
like a, I don't know, like a sexy chef or something, or like an actor or something?
Ooh.
I don't know. Like, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
would love
yeah. I
that.
like it. So my post-apocalyptic are all set in Australia, which has like been a lot of fun for me to kind of explore that. I think I've got a new series that I'm hoping to like spin off. So
Ooh.
I've got a new series that's coming out next year, and one of the actors in that is she's Australian, and so I'm really hoping to spin off into her family. So you'll be
Ooh,
like in Australia, local,
so
which would
exciting.
be lots of fun because yeah, I think I should really write more books set in Australia because it's a lot of fun and you get to throw in a lot of references
Do
that
it.
people are like, "What is this?"
Do it. You gotta do
Yeah.
it. I
Yeah.
I uh I just feel like the Michael from The Office where like there's a there's a fire, and he's like, it's time. We have to go. They're like, what? He's like, you have to fucking go. That's how I feel when I'm like one of your books come out and everyone's like, what are you doing? I'm like, you need to get this book. Oh, I'll get it later. No, no, you have to do it now. That's exactly how I feel. Like your books are just a breath of fresh air. And now I really want to read the apocalyptic like motorcycle one. Because
Yeah.
I'm here. Give it to me. Unhinged. She just grabbed her and they went into the darkness. Insta I'm in. Damn it, take my money. So
Love it.
yes, I will add the code from your website so that people can get your
Yeah,
books
yeah,
for
yeah.
free. So readers, yes. And I know you mentioned Thunder Thighs. We mentioned so many books. So I will link them in the comments below.
Yeah.
And on YouTube, I know sometimes the links don't always work. So you can always go into my bio and Instagram and then grab those links and I'll put the code there as well. But where can everyone find you?
Yeah, so
Mhm.
I'm on all socials at Evie Mitchell author. Or you can go to my website, which is eviemitchell.com. So yeah, it's
Awesome.
pretty straightforward. And if
Cool.
anyone needs anything accessible, as well, I'll make sure that the code includes the audiobooks. So if anyone requires that for an accessibility thing or anything, or if you just prefer audio, feel free.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Evie, for coming to this interview. I'm so grateful for your time and for you just
No.
geeking out about books with me and the readers and the listeners. Thank you, listeners, for listening. I hope you
Yeah.
subscribe to the YouTube channel and that you just follow us on Spotify and you listen for more in the future. Evie, when I read your apocalyptic motorcycle books, I definitely may invite you back just so we could discuss them and just nerd out about them because
I'd love it.
motorcycles, apocalypse,
Yeah.
Australia,
Yeah.
spice. What else could you want? So
Lots of
I feel
spice.
like I want to dive into the darkness. As a good friend of mine, Calissa and I have said, let's go into the darkness. If the darkness is like a pond, let's just jump right in. Let's go down the darkness
Love
hole. So that is what
it.
your books give me. And I'm just so grateful for all the listeners, and I'm so grateful for you, Evie. So thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It's been absolutely wonderful.
Yay! Listeners, there will be more soon. So have a great night.